Today I'm speaking with John Verlinden, a historian here at the Musquodoboit Harbour Railway Museum. And perhaps you'd like to tell me a little bit about the building, the genesis of the museum, and how you got involved with this museum.
It has an amazing story. I mean, you know, the only reason this building is here is because a local teacher named Dave Stevens loved this building. He loved the history of rail and trains and stuff like that. And when they actually closed down regular service in 1970, he approached CN about the possibility of leasing this station from them because it was starting to deteriorate, and opening up a museum and tourist information center. And he taught history as well as shop. And together with the students from his shop class, they fixed up the museum and opened it in 1975. And he ran it for a number of years after that until he decided to retire, because it's all a volunteer position. It was run by the Board of Trade for a period before Ruby Kelly stepped in and ran it, and now I'm here. This building goes back to 1918. That's when it was first opened. The railway itself actually had its beginnings just before the turn of the century. They started talking about a railway from Dartmouth down the eastern shore. It really was a small branch line of CN. So they didn't put a lot of investment in it. Most of the rail was used rail that came from the main lines when they built it. At the time, probably 1,000 people would have been working on the rail line. It was all done by hand. A lot of the bridges crossing the rivers were made out of wood. And they completed it to Middle Musquodoboit in 1915. And at that time, the first train went through the station with a load full of masons on a holiday trip to Mark Canada Day. The station wasn't built until the completion of the railway. And really, there was only a shack here where an agent would sell tickets to the train. It was completed in 1918 and again opened July 1st. That seemed to be a popular day for stations to open up. During its heyday, and that would have been 1919, 1920, 14 trains would have gone through this station every day. Passenger service was available every day during that period of time. The busiest times were on the weekend. People would go to town, go to Halifax. The station was really the center of the community during that time. It not only provided passenger service, so an opportunity for people to come together in one place. And that was important because out here in the rural areas, we didn't have telephone. Houses were further apart. So the station really became the social center, the cultural center of this community.
It's an odd thing because, you know, I'm a certain age, but it seemed to me that Canada was dotted with all these little train stations.
Very much so.
Because I can remember taking the train to go to Toronto. You'd be stopping at all these little stations in Quebec and New Brunswick and into Ontario.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, many of them are gone now. Many
of them are. There's very few that exist. Like I said, along this line, we're the only station left, which is kind of sad. You know, if you take look at the architecture around these buildings, I mean, they're quite something. I mean, this station is over 100 years old. And it could stand for another 100 years. It's so well built. They took pride in the station.
Now, they have sleepers and things. When did they bring in sleepers? Because we live in such an enormous country.
We do. That wouldn't have applied to us. Here it was basically a day journey, so there was no need of sleepers. The train couldn't move very fast. And the train gained quite a reputation for how long it took to get from one place to another. And it became affectionately known as the Blueberry Express. And the reason it was called the Blueberry Express was because people said that in the fall, you could get on the front car of the train with your basket and hop out when it got to the Musquodoboit Valley, pick blueberries, and still have time to get on the back car. It went that slow. So we still call it the Blueberry Express.
Well, John, perhaps you can tell me what visitors can expect to see here when they visit the Musquodoboit Harbour Railway Museum. And also, I understand you have a caboose.
We do have a caboose. We have a number of different cars that have been donated or acquired over the years. Our prize is a 1930 vintage wooden caboose, which is open to the public, and it looks exactly like it would have in the heydays of cabooses. You don't see them nowadays, but it's sort of the centerpiece at the front of our museum. You can go through it. The local library runs a children's reading program out of it. We do workshops in there, and it's just a fun place to be in for a child to climb up on top and have a look out the windows and see what a conductor saw. So it followed the train.
Sounds wonderful.
In terms of the museum itself, we have a large collection of artifacts, both from the local area as well as from the history of rail in Nova Scotia. So you can see everything from the original plans for this railway and some of the things that were used in the building of this railway. You can get a sense of what life was like inside a railway station. But, we tried as a museum to keep the sense that this was the center of community activity, the social center, the cultural center, the business center. This is a place where you can actually enjoy the entire day. We have a large picnic area, a food truck that comes on a regular basis. We have beer garden, music, movies, a craft shop with local crafts people, an ice cream shop. You don't have to go anywhere else.
And you got a caboose.
And we have a caboose.
I want to thank you, John. It's been very informative, and I hope the Musquodoboit Harbour Railway Museum does very, very well this summer. Good.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure welcoming everybody here to the museum today.
Thanks again. Today I'm speaking with Tegan Rowlands, the curator here at Musquodoboit Harbour Railway Museum. And perhaps, Tegan, you can tell me a little bit about how you got involved with this, what you do here.
Sure. So I started off actually volunteering here at the museum when I was just a little girl. My grandmother had retired as postmaster and took over running the museum here. So my earliest memories of volunteering and kind of feeling a part of the community happened in this building and around this building. I moved out of the village to go to school, lived in Antigonish, lived in Halifax. When I came home about 15 years ago, I thought, okay, what do I want to do here at home? Well, what's kind of the end goal for me? And an opportunity came up here, and thankfully, John was open to bringing me on as their one paid employee. And so I started off working as the collections assistant for about 3 months and then was promoted to curator. So I've been here for about 4 years.
And you're a local girl.
I am. I have deep roots in the community here. I'm actually 9th generation Musquodoboit Harbour, and my son is 10th. Our family's been here for a long, long time. So, sharing the heritage of the village, I think, comes very naturally. Yeah.
And you obviously love your job.
I do. I think one of the best parts about it for me is just being right in the center of the community and getting to see all the people that we see every day and getting to share the local history with the visitors that come to see us here and to explore the Eastern Shore. We've had some really, really great partnerships happening in the community between the museum and other organizations in the last 3 years since COVID started, really. And so we have developed a partnership with the local library. The librarians come over every Friday, and they have a program called Storytime in the Caboose, where a librarian comes over and a bunch of the younger kids in the village come. We open up the caboose for them, or if there's too many, sometimes it spills out on the platform in the back, and she reads them stories aloud, and it's just a really beautiful program. We also have a relationship with HRM Recreation, who are also right here in the center of the village, where we'll be doing outdoor movie nights for kids with them. So that's really fun. And then we have a lot of different things that happen on the grounds here during the season. So we have a long-time ice cream shop, the Polar Express, that's on one side of the property here. That actually started out as a high school entrepreneurship project for a student in the village and has now been running for, I think, almost 30 years. We have the Sober Island Beer Garden on the back of the platform here, and we've just completed a platform extension that's powered so that they have a stage for live music at the back of the building here. So Friday, Saturday nights, if you drove by the museum here, there's a lot of activity. We also are the home of the Musquodoboit Harbour Farmers Market. So that got its start here, about almost 20 years ago now. And so they are here on the grounds every Sunday from May Long Weekend to Thanksgiving. And a local food truck that comes every weekend as well. So it's kind of the place to be, really, between July and September.
Now, Sober Island, is that what it's called?
Sober Island,
And
yeah.
it's odd that it would be selling beer, right?
I know. So they're located, actually, they're based down in Sheet Harbor, further down the shore here. And Rebecca is the owner of that, and she's just a really neat girl. The brewery is located right next to Sober Island out there. So there's like boat tours that go to the island. They've got a pub there and the brewery, and they do live music up there as well.
Now, the blueberry, is that based on what I heard, that the train was so slow that you could get out, pick a thing of blueberries and get back on the train?
Yes, so because they kind of skimped on materials and engineering when they built the track here, it had a lot of twists and turns, so the train couldn't go very quickly. So that was why it was a very slow train for travel, and also because it follows the edge of the river. And so where the river turns, the track turns. And even still, in the summertime here, we have people that come and visit and pick blueberries off the track that still exists on the property here.
That seems like a very maritime story.
Yeah, truly. Yeah.
Well, Tegan, over visiting all these museums, what I find striking is the amount of volunteers and community involvement in the museum. Is that something you would also find here?
Absolutely. So the museum is mostly volunteer run. It's run by the Musquodoboit Harbour Heritage Society. And there are 2 or 3 of the guys that are on the board that are here every day or every second day. So they put in a lot of hours of work to maintain, especially to maintain the grounds in the building and make sure that it's a safe place for people to come visit. Like I said, I'm the only year-round paid employee, but definitely the volunteers are the lifeblood of a museum like this. And not just in the running of it, but in a lot of the labor that goes into it. You might see outside, there's a big sign that says this is a Lions Club supported project. The Lions have been longtime supporters of the museum here as well. So they still host 1 or 2 fundraisers a year on the property here, where the proceeds go back into just the regular operations and maintenance costs of the museum.
It's something to be proud of in the Maritime, particularly in Nova Scotia, that the community actively gets involved.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, this place, it's obviously not a new museum, and there's a lot of people in the village here that their families have been here for a long time. So it's deep in everyone's hearts. I think everyone feels really invested in making sure that it is maintained and that it's maintained well. Yeah.
I can imagine you can see that that's a link to your past, which is what this museum is. It's a link to the past.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Tegan, I want to thank you.
Thank you.
And it's been a wonderful time, and I hope the museum does very well this summer.
Thank you for coming to visit.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I'm speaking with Brian Staples, who is a volunteer here at the Musquodoboit Harbour Railway Museum, as well as on the board. Now, I understand you've been involved with this museum for quite some time, and perhaps you'd like to tell me how you got involved and what you do here.
Came to Musquodoboit Harbour around 1958, and this train station was like a magnet. And we kids would knock around. But as we got older, we noticed that CN work crews were coming from the big city and setting up over here on the side track to do the repairs throughout the line. It was like Disneyland. It was like an industrial park overnight. Strange looking locomotives. Well, they would start moving in with a cook car. And next to the cook car was the diner car, and then next to the diner was the sleeper. I was kind of a pudgy kid back then, and I'd been 12, 13 years old. I would beeline for that cook car. And in the cook car was the cook, and he would give us chores, peeling potatoes, carrots, turnips, send us on errands to the corner store picking up milk, bread, sugar, the norm things that they would need. But all the time that was going on, we kept an eye on the work crews that were gearing up to go on what we call speeders, but we called them putt-putt. It's a small little miniature train that could handle 4 to 6 people. There always seemed to be room for us kids, always. So a typical day was to jump on those carts, the putt-putt, get to the work site, and the majority of it was repairing the railway ties. They would be rotten or missing altogether. All labor, hand, shovel, pick, but they kept us busy running for spikes, nuts and bolts. Competition would start up a little bit in the afternoon, get the spikes all placed and how many hits it took to get each one in. Of course, the less hits, further us in wins. Now, that would be a typical day, and then we would come on back, slow track, see lots of scenery, especially in the mornings. On the trip back, conversation was more funnier from what had happened that day. Then it was over to the temporary stairs that was built by that cook car. And you'd go up into the cook car, and there would be he holding on his belly, and you could see all the marks of what he has been cooking and all the dirt on his belly, and of course the top lip of his hat. He would introduce each one of us by our first name, no nickname. Your first name, and he would always have something nice to say to each and every one of us. We were treated the exact same way as the men were. And you laid that plate down as quietly as you possibly could. And your cup. It was none of this bang, smash. It was quiet, somber area to eat. And they instilled in us, believe it or not, our mannerism. And we were corrected. And it wasn't pointed at, said, you da-da-da-da. It was very well approached. Now story time comes out. They would tell stories about mile-long trains that were going through the dark of the night, and clouds and wind, and it fell off, and they were cutting down trees to get it back on the track, and it had to be going the next day. Snowstorms was a good one, lots of big snowplow. We have one here, actually. Those type stories were interesting, but of course, the ghost stories come in after that. Those were good memories. I remember that. I can remember so much of those times, and we're just kids, like 12, 13-year-olds. So they were like a guardian over us kids, making sure that we were safe.
So they gave you structure. The dinner,
well said, yes.
The dinner, for example, was teaching you manners.
Oh, yes, that was really strong.
And it was also teaching responsibility to wipe your plate, to do all these things.
Yes.
So they're preparing you in a way for your future.
Yes.
Now, we were talking about your childhood memories. How did you actually get involved with the museum itself?
And today, present?
Yes.
The station around the 80s was becoming a museum, and I was traveling then I worked in the city all my life. But when I got about 25 years ago, I knew something was calling. We had a diner car on this side, and the kids from, I gotta be careful, but it was being broken into a lot. And it had glass windows at one time, and then the people before me had then put plexiglass in them, and they beat them out of it too. So it got to the point that the damage was its demise. It ended up being nothing in the end. But I would volunteer at that time to start boarding up those windows to try to keep that car. I guess that's when I started taking more interest in the facility. But I think I can do something for the community. I think I can help here. And I'm still here. But I guess those memories, those fond memories, yeah, that would be the magnet that brought me in. Yeah.
And maybe in some small way you're paying back that cook.
You know, that's a good way of saying that. Really, it is.
Now, Brian, what could I expect to see here if I took a wander about?
The two interesting cars we have is the snowplow, but the other one we have next to that is the caboose, and it's pretty. Kids love that. It's of course the colors and there's pictures inside. Talks a little about the history, and Tegan has done some story times there for the kids. It's great.
Well, I think I'm going to go have a look at the caboose.
I'm on your way.
Well, I want to thank you, Brian. It's been very informative, and come to the museum for the artifacts, but stay for the stories.
Roger that.
All right.
Thank you.
You're quite welcome. Is this the Blueberry Express? I'm late for supper. Is this where I get my ticket?